I think we definitely live in a hypergamy society, which is telling women you have to date up. You have to date someone more educated. You have to date someone who makes more money than you.
You should have this. It should look like this. It should,
Right. Yeah. And I'm not disagreeing with some of the premise of that. I understand where it comes from. But that is not how the people you want to date are dating. And in long-term compatibility, that is not a factor.
Yeah. If you guys are like me and wanting to be more mindful about what's in your products, how many toxins are in your products, and making sure that you're putting good things on your skin and into your body, I highly recommend Osea. I did a total revamp on all my products, and this is one I have been using and now is a staple in my bathroom. I particularly love their Ocean Eyes Age Defining Serum. I feel like I don't have bags under my eyes anymore, and I just feel really good putting this on my skin, knowing something good is going on my skin and into my body. So if you want to check out Osea's products, use our code QTCPOD10 to get 10% off your first purchase. I am very excited to welcome our next guest, matchmaker Maria. So many amazing questions to ask you. And we were talking a little bit offline, kind of like your referral stream from therapists. So I'm very curious to talk to you about that and sort of the differences in how you're able to work with clients versus myself as a therapist. But I really wanted to start with your journey. You're fourth generation matchmaker. Yeah. So were you always like destined to be in this work, or?
I hope not. I think Americans really like a story. So, when I tell Americans like I'm a fourth generation matchmaker, it's, ooh, tell me more. And when I tell Greek people that, which is where my heritage is from, they're like, oh, if you are, so am I, because matchmaking there was how you dated up until 1980.
Wow.
Right. And if it wasn't your parents playing matchmaker, it was your aunts, your uncles, like everyone's kind of in on the game. Mm-hmm. And so, it doesn't seem so odd. Like from my perspective, it's like, yeah, okay. But it wasn't something I thought about as a kid. Like, sure, I definitely matched people. I always like to say that my first match was in kindergarten and they broke up at prom. I don't want to say their names for privacy, but
that's a good run.
Yeah, it's a good run. It's a good run. But I think, when I look at like before I became a matchmaker, like what the aspirations I had, I just really wanted to help people. And I think I'm pretty good at solving problems, but also just making people feel like supported.
Yes.
And that just manifested into this.
And so how did it come to be? Like, you have your own matchmaking company, podcast book, like
there's a lot of stuff going on.
How did you identify that matchmaking was the way that you wanted to help and support people?
So I have to go back a lot of years now.
Okay.
So about more than 15 years ago, I was in graduate school at NYU. I was studying global affairs, thinking that I would go into the foreign service one day. Mm-hmm. And, when you're in grad school with you and your classmates, you'll probably go for a beer after. Instead, I was thinking like, I need a job after this. Yeah. I've signed up for some crippling student loan debt. Let me create like something that's going to help me find a job. So I started this thing called #NYCIR Thursdays, which is New York City International Relations.
Okay.
And so basically it was, this is when Twitter had just come out. Mm-hmm. So hashtags made a lot more sense. As a way to like find things, right? So I would say like every Thursday I'm hosting a cocktail hour here at this bar. I wasn't paying to close the bar. The bar was like, oh, you're going to bring people and we'll give you free alcohol for you. And I'm like, great, sounds...
It's a deal.
I'm poor. And, what would end up happening was immediately people would start coming, not only my classmates, but their friends that worked at, different nonprofits, at the UN, amazing. Different consulates. Like there's a lot of international affairs community in the city. You have people that are at Columbia at the SIPA school. So, there's a lot of things happening. Mm-hmm. And, thinking back at it, I'm always like, well, yeah, of course people started dating through that, because who's coming out on a Thursday night at 7 p.m. if not a single person?
Exactly.
Right? If you're married with kids, you're
in the throes of bedtime at 7
You're on
p.m.
Metro North. You're heading back home, And that was it. That was essentially what was happening. So it was very quick until a couple met each other, and suddenly they told their friends, and suddenly I was kind of like thrust in this position of, okay, you're going to be the matchmaker.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool.
I love that story so much, because a lot of what we talk about on here too is sort of finding your own path, going outside societal norms, what's expected of you, or what narratives were ingrained in you growing up of what you should be doing. And I love that because you had this one path of global affairs, and then you found something else and you pivoted.
Yeah. And I don't think about this often enough, but I can't believe my parents supported me.
Yeah.
I think my parents were more focused on that I was starting a business. So they were like, because I kind of treated this like a side gig because I was in grad school. Like I didn't know that, oh, this is going to become now my career.
Right.
You know, I was going to grad school and I was full time at a corporate. I had a corporate job. I was a corporate girly. I was 23 though, 24. And so at 24, I told my parents, like, I'm going to go full time with this. Like, I'll still finish grad school, still take on more student loan debt for that. And, but my parents, they just trusted me. They were like, all right, you're going to start a business. It doesn't matter what that is, but you've got this. And I come from a lower middle class family. So it's not like my parents are writing me a check and like, you know, it's okay if you fail, we've got you.
No, it's all on you. Yeah.
It was really all on me. And what I knew was that like, okay, if this ends up not working, my parents live, an hour and a half away. I can live there and come back to just find a new job after this. Yeah. But no, I think sometimes knowing that, you only get this one run. This is it.
I know. And being the willingness to just try, and maybe you do fail. But I always believe, like, and I say this to my clients as a therapist, like, the failures will teach you something. Like,
oh, and I have failed.
Oh, same.
Holy crap. I remember my first website. I spent so much money that I like worked so hard for at the time where I didn't know what was happening. And I spent so much money on this website because it was called Maria the Date Coach. Because I thought as a matchmaker, like, at the core of it all, it's this. And that website, I launched it with all these hopes, and then I was just like, oh, this is stupid. I need to be a matchmaking service. So it was like all that money spent.
I know. That's
not using any of it.
Yeah, 100%. I've had so many failures like that too. But again, I feel like they're learning opportunities. But that's entrepreneurship. I feel like it's like,
I had to learn what my audience was looking for so that they can find me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was a $5,000 business lesson.
I've had those too.
Yeah. So luckily I didn't have to, move back with my parents. Although now we do live together because I care for my parents. But there were a lot of months, maybe 2 years, where I remember I would eating ramen or
whatever you do to make the ends meet and make it happen. I think that's important to hear too, because especially with social media, I think, and I of course want to get into the matchmaking stuff, but you can look at everybody's successes and think it just like happened like that. And
see, that didn't exist then. Right. When I started my business, it was 2008, 2009. Not everyone had smartphones. Right. I didn't have a smarphone when I started my business. I mean, I guess, is a BlackBerry a smartphone? Like, that's what I had. Right. So it was just a very different time, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I couldn't copy what someone else has. Yeah. Because I've certainly seen copycats of my business.
I bet.
Since where they'll forget to delete my name when they're copy pasting the copy onto their website.
Well, you and I were DMing earlier about that one post.
Yeah. So silly mistakes. But what's funny to me is like, because of that, I think what I reflect on this, since we're talking about social media, is because I didn't have anyone to look at, I had to learn how to be my own authentic self. Like, you're just kind of forced that way to do that. Like, I wasn't doing anything to monetize on the likes. There was none of that. I wasn't saying outrageous statements to clickbait you. I had to really literally run down pavement, and
which I think is just such a valuable experience. I am so fortunate. I've had many detours and career changes until I found, my love for being a therapist. And, those moments were like, oh, am I ever going to figure it out? But now I look back and I'm like, I love everything that I did leading up to this, because it just lends itself well to what I do now. Just to shift the conversation a little bit into your work as a matchmaker, what does that process look like when someone comes to work with you or work with your company?
What can they expect out of that experience? And then also I'm curious, like, do you find people coming to you like at a point of dating app burnout?
Yes. There's a lot of questions.
I know.
There. So let's start off with like, how do people find us? So, if they manage to get onto my website, they're through Google or social media or whatever, but they'll be on a website called agapematch.com. And agape means love in Greek. I was, again, 23, 24 when I started this. Thought it was a good name. Didn't really think that people might mispronounce it. I've learned to live with in life that people mispronounce my name. So not a big deal, right? But once you get on there, you kind of follow the prompts. So you can decide if you want to be a client or a member in our database.
Got it. Okay.
I will say that, it all starts with a phone call too. So once you fill this out, if you are interested in hiring us or learning more about what other programs we offer other than just being a database, hoping we might call you because, we only take on a certain amount of clients at any given point because we're actually human. I cannot take 100 clients. I'm limited to taking me and my 3 other matchmakers on our staff. We're considered in the industry a boutique service. So that means that we only take 15, maybe 20 clients at a time. It really just depends on like the needs of the client.
I think there's so much cross section between what you and I do, because that's like probably the capacity to still do the good work, to work with like 15 to 20 people, because it's still, imagine a
listen, there's other dating services that have come out since then that say that they're matchmaking, and which is fine if they want to call themselves that, but their matchmakers are being assigned 50 clients at a month, and that's really hard on the matchmaker. Like, I'm sharing 15 clients with 3 other matchmakers.
Oh, 15 among all 3 of you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's really important to know and hear. So when someone is looking for a matchmaker, if they're not coming to you, is to ask, how many clients do you
I think that's a great question. I also want to learn about your turnover. I want to learn about how did you select me? I think I always have to think about my employees' well-being. Like, I can't take on clients that are going to emotionally abuse us, because then that becomes a problem, right? We're human. And I think, when you're talking about someone's personal life, sometimes in the dating industry, people hate you until they love you.
Sure.
So think about, like, I'm sure you've met couples who've met through Tinder.
Yeah. Right. I have a couple that just got married.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but if you ask those people right before they met their partner, do you like Tinder? They'd be like, oh,
well, that is the narrative.
I hate it.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, you hate it until you love it.
Yeah, all the dating apps, all my clients that are on the dating apps, or any former guests that I've had are single and dating, is like, I hate the apps, I hate the apps, I hate the apps. And it's, I don't think that narrative is very helpful. Like, they're probably not enjoyable. And
I don't think dating apps are supposed to be enjoyable. I think they're supposed to be as a tool. Would you ever ever say that about LinkedIn?
No, and it's not the one networking thing you use. And that's what I say to my clients in terms of LinkedIn. But in terms of dating apps, like, use it as one of your tools.
Right.
Don't use it as the only tool.
Right. But to go back to your first question, like, how do people find us? Like, they find us, they join, we might have a conversation, a phone call conversation, a member of my team, it's usually Louie. And, you can choose, do you want an info call? Do you want a dating assessment, which is a whole hour of like, let's talk about your history. Why are you here? Yeah. How can we actually help you? And I think that's actually a really powerful phone call, because for only $300, you can kind of get like a dating diagnosis from like a chemistry analysis. Like, what's been going on? What's been going on that we are on the phone today, and what are we going to do from here? So we're not even selling you there. Like, we might tell you matchmaking is not for you. We're just going to keep you in our database. Have a nice day.
When would is there an example you can think of, like, when you would say to somebody that matchmaking is not for you?
I think for a lot of women, paying a matchmaker is not necessarily for them.
Oh, say more.
It really has to do with like what you're looking for and how would it be different with a matchmaker. So if you were unable to meet these people on your own, like if you don't necessarily belong to the same socioeconomic circle or friend group, how are we helping you with that? And then also being really clear about the availability of the kind of men you're looking for who are also looking for you. So like we have 2 major programs at my company. The one is matchmaking. We predominantly take straight men.
Okay.
We do have women, it's case by case. We also have gay and lesbian where we usually don't, we usually refer those actually to a more appropriate matchmaker that has a database full of gay singles or full of lesbian singles, because that'll give you just a higher chance of success. And then our coaching program, which is kind of like fixing your picker, that is predominantly women.
Yeah.
And I say this because sometimes I think we definitely live in a hypergamy society, which is telling women you have to date up. You have to date someone more educated. You have to date someone who makes more money than you.
You should have this. It should look like this. It should,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing with some of the premise of that. I understand where it comes from. But that is not how the people you want to date are dating. And in long-term compatibility, that is not a factor.
Yeah.
The factors that your long-term compatibility sets on is emotional compatibility and lifestyle compatibility. And lifestyle does include financial compatibility, excuse me. That includes finance.
Yeah.
Let me do it again. It rests on emotional compatibility and financial compatibility.
Yeah.
And in financial compatibility, you have lifestyle. And these are really critical. I'm not saying you need to date someone who, makes, you could be making a lot more money. There's just a different way to look at his salary instead of thinking, oh, he can't afford me.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know that, and
I find sometimes in my work too, is that and I think this is what you're saying as well, is we're looking at the wrong things when we're thinking about long-term partnership. And narrative that is quite prominent is this, like, I don't want to settle. I don't want to settle. And it's like, no one's telling you to settle.
I've never asked anyone to settle, but I have asked for them to tell me what the foundation looks like.
Right. And I think we're not thinking about that enough.
Look, the most important decision you'll ever make is who you marry, especially as it pertains to your mental well-being, your financial future, and your physical health. And it even more so if you decide to have kids with this person. Yeah. And let me tell you something. Just because he makes 5 times more than you do, it does not mean he's going to be a good father. And he does not mean he's going to be a good partner to have kids with. Right? So there's a lot there at play. And anyway, so when women come to us and when they want to hire a matchmaker, this is not the case for all women. But I've been in business for more than 15 years. I know what it looks like when sometimes some women hire us. And now it's like, okay, I've hired a matchmaker. You're going to find me the guy that I've fantasized.
I know.
And somehow it's like, if they had not paid me, they would have had this like normal list, which is like, I want a guy who's kind, who's hardworking, goal-oriented. I don't care if he has hair on his head. Oh, it would be nice if he was taller than me, but it's okay if he's not 6'4". And then suddenly, the moment money is exchanged, he needs to have full head of hair.
6'4".
He's making $1 million. Look at the heights, minimum 6 feet, and I'm just like, whoa, like this is not the guy that I thought of for you.
Yeah.
But look, I've had many female clients hire us who have gotten married through us, and the one that I love the most, and actually I think we follow each other on Instagram. I mean, I hope we do because I see photos of her kid all the time, is she had hired us during the pandemic, like right before it began in January 2020. And she's an investment banker making like millions of dollars a year. And I was just like, great, let's talk about it. Like, what can you afford the life you want? Yeah. Okay. How much is enough then? She's like, I just want a really nice guy who's going to support me. Like, I need emotional support. I've never had that. If I wanted to date someone who made a lot of money, I could just date my coworkers. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
And that was great because I met, pretty soon a lawyer. He's very classic, good looks. And I mean, he makes a good income, but he was nowhere near hers.
Right.
Right. So he's still 6 figures, but we're not talking about what she's making. Right. And, she wasn't judging him on that. And I think she was judging him like that was gone. That was out. And even if he was, let's say, pretend like a principal at a high school making $100,000 a year or whatever, right? she was open to, like, she dated men like that through us. And she was just like, great, if this works out, I just made $100,000 a year bonus. Like, she wasn't thinking about that. And it was nice when that part of the equation of compatibility came out, and then we could just focus on the lifestyle she wants to have. You know, she wants to go to the Hamptons every year because her family has a house. It's not like she's trying to do a party. She just wants to go to the beach. You know, she likes to do barbecues with her cousins once a month. Like, it's like, okay, that lifestyle does not require him to also be an investment banker.
Right.
So it was nice to have that conversation with her. She got into a really great relationship with the guy, I think, like in the pandemic, like in lockdown.
Wow.
So, and now that they're married and have a kid.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think it's when, you know, and this is my own personal experience with dating, is sort of understanding like my picker. And once I did that, and that was kind of out of the way, those sort of like dysfunctional perspectives, or I should have this, I met my partner a month later. So I'm curious, like when you do a diagnosis or you do the coaching, is this a lot of work you do to sort of maybe untangle, like?
Yeah, it's a lot of untangling, like not only how your parents raised you and what you need to unlearn.
Yes.
And that unlearn is not just emotional. It is very much in a lot of the realms, right?
Yeah.
Physical. Why are you attracted to this? What have your parents told you you're supposed to date?
Exactly.
What were you surrounded by? Spiritual. You know, if you want to date only a particular religion, is it because, or culture, is it because, you know, you find that your community in this? Like, is this something that you do? Like, for instance, I'm very public about being Greek Orthodox Christian. I'm really big in my community, but I dated non-Greeks, right? I was just like, listen, if this works out, our kid is going to Greek school, like, just so you know. Or are your parents imposing on you to date in a certain religion? Let's skip intellectual for a second, but financial and financial especially, I think, is where we have to do the most untangling and unlearning.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you know, knowing that a lot of how divorce happens, it comes from a place of content and resentment. Where does that content and resentment stem from?
Yeah.
And it stems from usually financial and emotional incompatibility. Okay, so with financial, all right, why are you financially incompatible? So I was listening to this podcast this morning where she was saying, you know, he likes to spend money on his hobbies. And, you know, he won't even tell me how much he's paying for like this golf club or this tournament. But then when we go to the supermarket and I say I want to buy some chocolate chips to make cookies, he says, we don't need chocolate chips. We can't afford that right now. And that's silly.
Yes.
This is silly.
Yeah.
But that will breed. You just need that's the seed. You know, and it, you know.
Yeah, and the resentment is just like, I work with, you know, a lot of clients where this shows up in their relationships, like that just feeds on itself if you're not addressing it, and it's really toxic in a relationship.
I mean, the funniest thing for me as a matchmaker is to hear people say stuff like that song that came out over the summer, I'm looking for a guy in finance.
Oh, yeah, 6'5".
Blue eyes, 6'4", whatever it was. And it's like, no one has divorced because of the color of their eyes. No one has divorced because of someone's height. No one has divorced.
I just don't think we're unless we're in therapy or finding someone like yourself. Like, I don't think individually, and obviously I can't speak for everybody, I certainly didn't, are thinking about these things, are thinking about these fundamental, foundational things that are so important to a long-lasting partnership. We are thinking about height, eye color, money.
But see, we didn't think about height until online dating apps, right? So before online dating apps, or not even apps, just the websites, right? Straight women looked at men and said, short, average, tall. No one was an expert on the imperial system of measurement. Oh, that guy looks like he's 5'9". That was not happening, right? So just keeping that in mind, like, this is also, as much as it's a physical construct, it's also very much a social construct, right? I'm 5'11". I know that there are less men that are taller than me, but also who are interested in my height.
Right.
But I have met maybe thousands of women below the height of 5'6" who have said to me, if he's not at least 6 feet, I'm not interested.
What do you say to somebody that says that?
Well, I usually say if they're 5'5" and they say this to me, that I would be like, could you imagine if I said to you, I wouldn't date someone if he was at least 6'5"? Like, that's what you're saying to me. And it's almost always like, well, I'm attracted to what I'm attracted to. I want to feel protected. And I'm like, protection from what? Because the two biggest risks in your life right now are like you not locking your passwords correctly and not using hand sanitizer. This is the risk that you have in life, right? There's no bear coming out of the subway, as far as I'm concerned, right? So, it's just kind of, the other thing I always like is I always like to point out to people, like, this height thing, you're using, again, imperial system. And that's really tough, because if we were having this conversation 20 years ago, you would have just said, Maria, I just want to meet someone who's tall. I like tall men. And now I'm like, well, you're 5'5". I can introduce you to someone who's 5'10" and up.
And they're tall.
Yeah. But now you're like 6 feet or nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, like, chill.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. So you do work with a lot of men. Sort of what maybe their frustrations are with dating. I think we have, as women, and as I've been doing this podcast, we've had men on. I want to have more men on, but I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding about a man's experience in dating.
In which way?
In that they're just out there dating all of these women and they have all of these options. And we've had other previous guests, like dating coach, say a lot of men don't even get likes on apps.
Yeah.
So I think there's this just misunderstanding about sort of men's experience with dating.
So, as I mentioned before, we predominantly take men in matchmaking, and the usual reason why someone would hire a matchmaker, especially a man, is because it's either privacy or time. And it used to be, since I've had my business before dating apps, my clients used to be predominantly privacy.
Okay.
Right? Like, I don't want,
it out there that I'm...
Yeah, I don't want to be out there. It wasn't so much the stigma. It was like, I'm a professor at Columbia. I don't want my students seeing me on, Match.com.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Or I'm a doctor in this neighborhood. I don't want my patients swiping on me, So we used to have the privacy thing. Or I'm a CEO of a major company. Like, that's typical, because it's like I have shareholders. They cannot know I'm single.
Right.
And then I think it was like 2015 or 2016 where it just became like a time thing. Like, so suddenly it's like, I don't have time to do this. And to answer to the original question, it's like the reason why that was happening is because online dating experience is very lopsided. So there are more men signed up than women online. And it's now becomes a catch-22, right? Because you do have an algorithm in play. And the hottest guys ever, like conventionally in that criteria, they're getting a lot of swipes.
Right.
They're getting from swipes of women that they would never encounter in their day-to-day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like... And I don't mean this in some sort of mean way, right? It's just a lot of women are swiping because they're like, well, he's there. Why can't I swipe? Right? So they're getting inflated ego. Like, it's just there, right? And then you have, on the other end, like your normal looking dude. Let's call him a 7.
Okay.
A 5 or a 7.
7 is good.
Right? But let's do that, right? Like, he's balding. Maybe he's a little lanky. Like, he's just your average Joe. And he could be a good guy. I don't know. I'm just using search criteria right now. And it's like, I could do better, because you have this unlimited, but that doesn't mean, just because you swipe doesn't mean you're going on a first date. So then now that guy, he's not getting a lot of messages. And then there is a lot of fear, right? You're talking to strangers. I think a lot of people misuse these tools in general. I think a lot of men don't know how to fill out online dating profiles, because sometimes I think men fill out online dating profiles thinking that other men are going to see it. So they're posing with fishes and cars.
Yeah.
When the reality is that other women are going to look at it and they want to see someone that looks safe and who's going to be fun on a date. And you don't seem fun if you're not smiling in your photos.
No, exactly.
They're not filling out their prompts. So there's like a lot of things that a man could do to improve his online dating experience that does not include height. But you have to talk about height, and you also have to talk about race. And people are really discriminatory against other people on these things. And that's, that's patriarchy, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I never...
Men do the same back to women, by the way. Everything I just said that women do to men.
Yeah, for sure.
Men do the exact same thing. They're swiping women that, like, how?
Yeah. I'm curious. I had a different question, but this just popped into my head because I just finished watching Love is Blind UK, and I'm curious what you think about that experiment of like removing all these things that we're talking about the physical.
I don't know anything about those shows.
Oh
So dating is my job and it's real.
And so I hear you.
So when I get home, I don't want to look at dating at all. I want to watch a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
I want to listen to maybe a true crime podcast and watch Law and Order SVU.
No, I can totally appreciate and respect that. Same as a therapist, like you're in that space for.
But what do you like about it? Or not like about it? Well, what is Love is Blind? Is Love is Blind the one where they're in like separate rooms or something?
Yes, it's like they're in these pods where they can't see what each other looks like. So
and they talk to each other?
They talk to each other. I have certain feelings on it because I don't know how people fall in love in like 3 days behind a wall, but
especially without looking at each other.
Because
it's perfectly human to want to be attracted to the person you like.
I agree, 100% agree. Like, and that's back to the like narrative. I don't want to settle. Like, no one's asking you to date someone you're not attracted to.
That's right.
At all. But I think, and what I've found in my work as a therapist, working with other, especially 30-something-year-old women, that's sort of our audience, 30 and 40, who are feeling this like time pressure and biological clock ticking and impatience. Like the lens is so narrow on who they choose, and those things typically never work out. I like that it allows someone to see someone else they might not have considered. And I think, and I've had my own experiences where I've had the opportunity to like know somebody and then become attracted to them. And I always would think like, if I saw this guy in a dating app, I would not.
Oh, I'd say that about my husband all the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
If I saw my husband on a dating app, I'd probably swipe left.
Right. Because that's the premise of the show, is sort of removing those more maybe superficial things.
I will tell you, as someone who also works with a lot of 30 and 40-year-old women, the one annoyance that I have, it's probably my biggest annoyance, is when I hear like, hey, I have a match for you. Here's what he looks like. Here's what he's like. I think, and I'll say like, I think he'd be such a great match for you because first of all, he goes to therapy. He's done the work, like he's done the work. Yeah. He would really love to get married and have kids the next 5 years or 3 years, depending on the person. He lives, just 5 miles away. He has this job. You guys have the same, socioeconomic status and lifestyle. Like I'll point out what it is.
Yeah.
And then the response that I'll get is, I could have dated a guy like this 10 years ago. If I'm going to hire you, he needs to be better. And I'm like,
did you not hear everything?
Like I just said all these, but I think that is actually what I just said, though, I think is a really accurate measure of how some women over the age of 35 who want to get married and have kids use, which is like, oh, this guy, he's great, but I could have dated 20 guys like this in my 20s.
Well,
why should I
probably
settle
have dated
again?
20 guys like that.
Yeah, but then it'll be like,
the settling.
Why should I settle now for someone I could have dated 10 years ago? So now that I've waited, now that I've put in this time, it's basically a sunk cost fallacy, right? It's like, I've put in this time. It's like, I'm going to bet all my chips. Like, and I'm telling you, like, listen, this here, I'm telling you, the next, on the roulette table, the next color is going to be black. Put your money on black. And you're like, no, I've been here for 3 hours. The next one's going to be the green 00. Like, I feel it. And it's like, no, bet on black. Let's go.
Yeah. It's so funny you give that example because I literally lived that this weekend. And it's a little bit different. I have an identical twin sister who...
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Who is...
Are you the oldest?
She's older.
Oh, okay.
I was a surprise.
What?
Yeah, my parents didn't know they were having twins until after my sister was born.
Like 2 minutes later, they were like, oh, I still have to push?
There's another baby in there. And so we're typically twins are very close in like birth time, and we're 18 months apart because they didn't know like the status of me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And you were all healthy and all that jazz.
Good. Yeah. So anyway, we had some friends over on Sunday, and my sister is divorced and single and wanting to meet somebody. And a friend of ours was laying out all these amazing attributes of this guy she knows. Like, he's a teacher, he's family oriented, he coaches football, he's such a great guy, all these things. And my sister just got so stuck on, well, is he cute? And our friend was like, she's like, that he's not cute. And I'm like, oh my God, just meet him. Like, just be open. And I share a similar frustration, like in my work as a therapist. Like, I have these women that are really dying to meet somebody, but they're just like, have this like very narrow perspective.
My whole team uses me as an example whenever we get these pushbacks. So like, I'll tell you, there's a big gender difference here, and I hope the listener listens to this whole thing before attacking me. Men and women look at attraction very differently. Okay, so with both straight and gay men, it's been my experience as a professional matchmaker that when a man meets a person that he might be on a date with, the first thought in their mind is, could I sleep with them? I'm not saying you'll allow them. I'm not even saying that could happen ever. But it's like this.
Yeah, that's their.
Is it? And if it's a yes, then there will be a second date. Like if the date goes well, then there will be a second date. But if it's not a yes, the date could be perfect. It has been my experience having set up 10,000 first dates that no one has ever gone on a second date. If that first, like if I just wasn't attracted.
Yeah.
With women, it's very different. Women, the first thing they check on a man is the C factor, creep factor. Is he a creep? It's just a vibe.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
You see someone, you're like,
yeah.
And by the way,
you feel it in your body.
You feel it in your body.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, right? The next thing that they do though is like they will account for how attractive he is, right? But it doesn't sway this date now, right? It just like what sways is the C factor. Is this going to go well or not?
Right.
But that second part, is he attractive? Usually women, maybe subconsciously, will put a number, like, and maybe not a number, like a level. Like, oh, he's kind of cute. Or,
Yeah.
I don't think he's cute at all. But like, there's a level. Now, in that date, if you ask her questions, if the date makes her laugh, if the date makes her feel safe throughout the date, if the date is leaning in and making her feel interested and interesting, that whatever that level was, maybe it was mid, it's gotten to the top now. And so I felt this way with my husband. And you have to look at what attraction is, right? You're attracted to what you're familiar with. That's what attraction is, right? So I remember before I met my husband, a lot of the men that I dated were gym rats. I'm tall. A lot of tall men do that, right?
Yeah.
And suddenly I meet, his name is George. I meet George and he was a lab rat. So, very different kind of person, right? I don't think he's ever seen the inside of a gym. He was also balding. I had never dated someone who was balding before. He was just a normal guy. And I remember when I met him, I put that level in, like not a creep, mid, like, all right, we were introduced through friends.
Okay. I was going to ask how.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were introduced through friends. And then, but as the evening was going on, by the way, we're among all of our friends.
Oh, it's not even like a individual
We're not even
date.
on one-on-one. We're at a
so you're
bar.
good. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But as that evening is going through, he's making me laugh. He's being nice to me.
Yeah.
He's talking about something so passionately that I can tell he's like smart, and that's my kryptonite. I love smart men. And it was just enjoyable. So I remember thinking, like, I don't know if I'm attracted to him, but I really like him and I want to see him again. And sure enough, on the next date, it's like I'm familiar with him now. Like
there's
now I think he's
there.
and now I think he's cute.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's so interesting because we've been together now for 12 years. Now the men that I find attractive, they all belong to this, I call it the Phil Dunphy school of men, right?
Okay.
Like this sort of Ted Lasso, because that's what I'm married to, right? So these are the kind of people that I find, just really attractive. I don't find the people that I used to date attractive at all.
Same. I mean, same for me. I would have never chosen my partner. Like he would have never even been someone on my radar if I hadn't done my own work. Like I dated very different people, and he's all of those things too. Certainly makes me feel safe, makes me laugh my ass off, like great father, great partner. So I do think a lot of times it is kind of getting out of our own way and allowing ourselves to see someone different or we might not have considered.
Yeah, and I don't want this to feel discouraging. I'm not telling women you have to date ugly men. That's not it.
Yeah, that's not it.
Or like,
that's
why
not,
can't men do that? And I go, men's attraction is really wide ranging.
Yeah.
Like, don't let the media fool you. But at the same time, like, this is what I think, if you were to ask me what makes us different in dating, this is it. And you just kind of, I always tell, I do challenge men a lot though. And when they say like they're only attracted to a very specific thing, I'm like, show me your Instagram. Let me see who you're following. Because again, if you're familiar, that's what you're attracted to. Do you follow any people that are a diverse background than you, diverse body types? Because if you don't, you're never this looks other.
How do you help your clients sort of get out of that, get out of just saying I'm only attracted to this person? Because I think there's so much crossover, but you might as well be a therapist, like a crossover between what you and I do. And for me, a lot of the times is helping, again, widen that perspective. I have a male client that only dates a certain type, and it's never working out. And we talked about this off camera about sort of the way I am able to work with clients versus how you are able to work with clients.
Let's talk about that difference.
Yeah. So for me, which I appreciate the way that you're able to, and there's a lot of times in sessions I'm thinking certain things I want to say that are a little more direct and blunt. And I can be with certain clients, and of course, if there's that strong therapeutic relationship, but I don't really have the liberty to be like, really, really blunt.
Right. I think there's a really good differentiation here between like a therapist and what a coach does. And I think that these two things can work together if the philosophy is aligning. So basically, one of the reasons why we have this group coaching program called the Agape Intensive, and I mean, half of the women, and we've had men too, half of the women that enroll are coming from their therapists, because I don't think their therapists can tell them some of the things that I'm telling them, right? Because now I'm giving them direction. So I think and you could correct me if I'm wrong, my perception of what therapy can be for a lot of people is discovering with that therapist what behaviors are being triggered, acknowledging the feelings and emotions that you're experiencing during that outcome, and being able to acknowledge, that, and hopefully with that new vocabulary, the behavior will change even by 1%. Like this is what I think therapy can be really great
100%.
for.
100%. You're spot on. Yeah.
Coaching is you are opting in to taking that coach's treasure map, where you have both agreed on what the treasure is at the end. So in my case, I'm a science-based dating coach, a certified science-based dating coach, and a matchmaker. And my treasure map is how to get you in a happy and healthy relationship. Right? So here's my treasure map. And so I'm going to tell you what you have to follow here
to get there.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to acknowledge all of your triggers. You're going to do that on your own.
Right.
And we do give them tools. We say, hey, this came, because we have like a section about triggers and self-sabotaging beliefs, but we tell them like, oh, we need you to write this down. Now, this is what you have to bring to your therapist.
I love that.
Right? Like you're going to come in now more equipped into those meetings with the therapist, because now you're uncovering things that you weren't thinking about before.
Yeah.
Like, to go back to money, what do you need to unlearn about money? Because money is so triggering. It's so triggering.
Yeah.
Imagine giving now, imagine sharing a checking account with someone. Like you got to be able to talk about everything.
Yeah, and there's so much deep rooted things around money and what informs your relationship with money. I mean, I have a therapist in my practice that has a real interest in just focusing on that. It's like you would be full with clients, because there's so much complexity to money.
Financial and compatibility is not talked about enough.
I know.
It's my personal obsession, clearly.
There's so much not talked about enough.
Yeah.
One last question I have for you. I mean, I could have you here for hours, which I loved. I saw you have this 12 dating rule.
The 12 date rule.
Which I loved, because a lot of what I hear in my work is like, on a first, I didn't feel the spark. There wasn't like this crazy attraction. I was like, well, maybe when there is, that's when you should run the other way.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear more about that, because I love that.
So let's talk about the spark first. For most people, I mean, you're a therapist, you know it better than most people. Like the spark is typically your anxiety coming out on a first date. And it will come out a lot, especially when you're looking at someone who's very familiar. Maybe they resemble someone that's in your past or your parents. So now you're kind of like, do they like me? Do they want me? Like, I need something. And it's like, it's this kind of subconscious game that you're playing with each other on the date. And that turns into anxiety. And then we confuse that as the spark, when really I want people to focus on the vibe. I'm going to make
that shift. I'm
going to make it a little bit more existential. Okay. Do you believe that this person was meant to meet you in this lifetime, even for this one date?
Yeah.
Right. And the answer for a lot of people is like, yeah. And you'll know when it's a no.
Yeah.
I've met people in life where I meet them and within a minute I'm like,
oh, easy.
I am not supposed to know you in this lifetime. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, the 12 date rule is a dating method that I created like 12 years ago. It's gotten thousands of people engaged and married and with kids and all that stuff. I love it. I've got merch now. I've got the 12-date rule bride shirts, like tank tops.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's crazy. But essentially it's a way to relook at, to intentionally date without the distraction of sex. So, we've talked so much about compatibility being emotional and financial. We're not talking about physical right now.
We haven't even talked about sex.
You know what physical compatibility looks like.
Yeah.
So I don't need to teach you that, right? So instead, let's do this a different way. Let's not distract ourselves with sex. What happens for a lot of people is when you have sex, you release a lot of chemicals in your body, and one of those are oxytocin. And oxytocin is really powerful. And I'll just give you an analogy. It's like wearing rose-colored glasses. So the red flags are hard to see. The pink flags are invisible. And it's the pink flags that will eat you, you know? And, that's what people complain about, I think, the most to therapists is the pink flags. Yeah. The red flags are like, oh, the given, but it's the pink flags.
Or the pink ones are like the ones that are more easily ignored, or like,
he never tips the waiters. Oh. That eats people. That will eat people alive, right? Or he closes the jars too tight. Yeah, because they want you to want them to like. These are such so silly ridiculous pink flags, but these are the things that like we miss out on, right? So when you have sex, this is what's going to happen. So what if before those rose-colored glasses go on your face, we just have an eye exam, and that eye exam is called the 12-date rule. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to wait. It's okay. Rules are meant to be broken, but try to wait until 12 dates happen before becoming physically intimate, however you define that, right? Okay. Now, and when I say physically intimate, I mean sex.
Yeah.
People always ask, "Can I give a blowjob?" You can give a blowjob. I'm not in your room. I don't care, right? But let's talk about, I think what scares people is the 12. So let's talk about that 12. When I say 12 dates, I don't mean 12 weeks. And I want to talk about like...
that's a very big distinction. Because 12 dates can happen in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Well, for a lot of people, it's 12 weeks, right? Because they define date very differently. So 12-date rule usually takes 2 to 3 weeks because there is, as my followers call it, matchmaker Maria date math. Okay. So a date is a minimum of 20 minutes, maximum 3 hours. It's a phone call, a video call.
All count as dates.
Or a video call or an in-person date. Though that counts as a date. Okay. Minimum 20 minutes. Okay. So a 20-minute phone call, congrats, you just went on a date, right? You can only have up to 2 dates in one day. So you have that marathon date where it starts with brunch and then a walk and then you go to the movies. It's 8 hours. That's 2 dates.
Oh, it's 2 dates.
So you can have up to 2 dates in one day.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so minimum 20 minutes, maximum 3 hours for one date. You can have up to 2 dates in one day. 3 of those 12 have to be in person.
Okay.
Now, and texting does not count for anything.
Love that.
Audio messaging does not count for anything.
About texting.
People have fallen in love via text.
Totally.
People get catfished. Well, people send their hard-earned money to scammers because they fell in love via text.
Yeah, I know people have full-on relationships via text.
Texting doesn't count for anything. Yeah. So what happens when you do it this intentionally? You will learn a lot about this person. There's 4 things I always tell people I want you to learn. I want you to learn what they're like on a bad day. I want you to learn what they're like having a good day. And you can ask them, hey, when was the last, you're on your 4th 1 hour FaceTime call. When was the last time you had like a bad day at work? And let them tell you about it. Let them tell you how they handled it. Let them talk to you, right? Yeah. The other 2 things I want you to learn is how do they treat you when you're having a bad day? And this is the most important one. Yeah. How do they treat you when you're having a good day? Because I got to tell you, my goal in life is to never allow women to date or never allow people to date each other where the man makes the woman cry on her birthday. There are so many toxic, insecure men out there who will shit on a woman when he finds out that it's her birthday or she's got a promotion or, oh, you're going to brunch with your mom and your sister today. Let me tell you how terrible you are and you've abandoned me and whatever. So it's like, I want you to see how he treats you on a good day. Is he saying, oh, girl, you got a promotion? Let me go get some champagne. Yeah. Or is he like, oh, you're going to spend more hours now outside of home. I'm never going to see you. Are you having like a little, am I triggering you?
No, not for myself. It's just like hard to hear that we
But that happens. That is so common.
I know. Right? I know. That's why
that is settling.
That is
settling.
That is settling.
And so this is what the 12-date rule is supposed to uncover. And look, the majority of men you meet or women you meet, they will never get to 12. And that's the point. I don't want you having because you know what happens? You have sex with someone, rose-colored glasses, and now you're in this emotional whirlpool situationship for the next 3 months. So either you wait 2 weeks and save yourself a 4-month situationship or abuse or whatever it is, a bad thing, or just wait 2 to 3 weeks, get to know them a little more.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. And I know one of the things that comes up, and it's why, one of the narratives that inform the title of this podcast is Quieting the Clock. And I think what happens for a lot of women, or at least women that I've worked with, they have this narrative of wasting time, right? So I don't want to waste any time. And it's like how they're defining that wasting time, I feel like is so backwards. Like I think the bigger waste of time is to end up in a 3-month situationship.
Yeah.
And now you're like dealing with heartbreak, that ends, you're starting all over. And so thinking about...
And there's no guarantee that you would actually even leave a bad 3-monther because of sunk cost fallacy. Like you immediately think, oh, I just put 3 months in, I don't want to start again. It'll work out when it works out. And it's like...
Yeah. So I love that you brought that up because that comes up a lot in my work too. And I always believe, or that women won't stop dating because they can't waste time and they have to, I was like, well, I think the best use of time is to sort of step back. Let's understand what's happening. So I think sort of dismantling that narrative of wasting time is so helpful. And I love the 12-date rule for that.
I mean, the one bit of advice that I would give anyone is like the best way, if you are looking for a relationship, the best way to do it is invest in new friendships and as diverse as possible. Pick up a hobby. If you don't have a hobby, go volunteer. Check out your public library. It probably has a ton of stuff happening. Like you need new friends.
Yeah.
And as diverse as possible, because that's going to open you up to new birthday parties,
opportunities,
family barbecues, new events that they might be going to that they need to partner with. Like today, I connected 2 women who are going to go to dinner en Blanc tomorrow. They don't know each other. They just both happen to follow me online. But now they just made a friend, right?
That's interesting. I was going to ask you sort of one piece of advice, which you've already answered that question. But yeah, I think... this is a whole nother topic, but just relationship in general, connection, new friends, finding new friends, getting out of your comfort zone, doing things. It's all things I suggest to my clients too. Hobbies, take yourself to dinner. You never know who you're going to meet, and just sort of getting out of your
adventure travel. That's actually now, we have like Agape Match has a subsidiary travel company. So we host co-ed travel groups and solo women travel groups. And it's not about dating. It's just about making new friends. So we're facilitating friendships while on an adventure in Greece in the summer or in the spring.
And then it's a win-win because I think everybody's looking for friends. Everybody's looking for
while you
friends.
check off a bucket list item, it's great. And you get to, you're spending more than 2 hours with each other. You're spending a whole week in a foreign country. Like you're
tight.
Bonded.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and all this like amazing wisdom and advice. I know everybody listening is going to really appreciate it. And, I love the word intentionality. And I think what you're doing is allow people to be really more intentional about what they want and how they're looking for somebody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you.
If you're someone struggling or relating to the topics that we're talking about now, and you're feeling the anxiety or the stress or the pressure of feeling like you're running out of time, you're behind, and you want some extra support, check out my group therapy practice in Midtown Manhattan, NYC Therapeutic Wellness. We have an amazing team of clinicians ready to support you in your journey, to help you feel more grounded, to help you feel more grateful, to help you feel like you're just exactly where you need to be. So check us out at www.nyctherapeuticwellness.com. Hey guys, I'm Beth. Thank you so much for tuning in to Quiet the Clock. If you want to hear more episodes and learn more about how to dismantle societal timelines, live life on your own terms, live life fully and authentically, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Quiet the Clock Pod. You guys, I'm really excited. We just created all this amazing merch. And so if you're loving the podcast and you want to support our cause and continue to hear amazing episodes, please support us by buying some merch. I am living in these sweatshirts every day. We have a range of colors. We have hoodies, we have mugs, we have hats, we have journals. We have all of the things, and I love having them on because it's just a reminder to quiet the clock, to slow down, to like let life unfold and be happy. So there's meaning and purpose behind wearing it too, which is a nice reminder. So check out our website, quiettheclock.com, to get your merch.